Imagine a universe where humans are considered the weakest species, barely tolerated in the Grand Galactic Council, where alien royalty looked down upon Earth's representatives as primitive curiosities, where interspecies romance is not just forbidden, it's considered biologically impossible and socially repulsive. Now imagine the most powerful princess in the galaxy, heir to a throne that commands 1,000 star systems, standing before trillions of beings across countless worlds and declaring her love for a human. A mere human champion who wasn't supposed to win, wasn't supposed to survive, and certainly wasn't supposed to capture the heart of the galaxy's most untouchable woman. This is the story of Marcus Chun, a disgraced Earth military officer turned gladiator, and Princess Zurathel of the Vorthan Empire, and how their impossible love affair shattered every rule, tradition, and prejudice the galaxy held sacred. Some love stories change hearts. This one changed the universe itself. The arena floor was stained with the blood of a dozen different species, and Marcus Chun was about to add his own to the collection. The human stood in the center of the Colosseum of Vex Prime, his breathing steady despite the roar of 80,000 alien spectators calling for his death. Above him, the energy dome crackled with anticipation, containing not just the combatants, but the very air they breathed, each species requiring different atmospheric conditions to survive. Marcus adjusted his grip on the plasma sword, its blue energy humming against his palm. 3 months ago, he had been Commander Chun of the Earth Defense Force, leading humanity's first diplomatic mission to the Galactic Council. Now he was Gladiator 7749, property of the Vorthan Empire, fighting for the entertainment of beings who considered humans little more than clever pets. The fall from grace had been swift and brutal. One moment, he was shaking hands with Ambassador Krelthon of the Centauri Federation. The next, he was being dragged away in quantum restraints, accused of stealing classified military data. The evidence had been fabricated, of course, but in a galaxy where humans held no political power, truth was a luxury he couldn't afford. The arena gates groaned open with a sound like dying stars. What emerged made the crowd's roar reach fever pitch. A Kralex warrior, 8 feet of chitinous armor and razor-sharp claws, scuttled into the arena on 6 powerful legs. Its mandibles clicked hungrily as compound eyes fixed on Marcus with predatory focus. The betting odds, scrolling across holographic displays throughout the arena, showed Marcus at 847 to 1 against survival. In the royal box, Princess Zurathel of the Vorthan Empire watched with the dispassionate interest of someone who had seen 1,000 such matches. Her father, Emperor Thaindok, had organized this particular spectacle to celebrate the signing of a new trade agreement with the Kralex Hive Worlds. The humans' participation was meant to be brief and educational, a demonstration of why Earth species remained in the lowest tier of galactic civilization. Zarathel's crystalline skin caught the arena lights, shifting through subtle hues of blue and silver as her emotions remained carefully controlled. She was beautiful by any standard, alien or human, with features that seemed carved from living gemstone and eyes like captured starlight. At 127 years old, she was barely past childhood by Vorthan standards, but her intelligence and strategic mind had already made her indispensable to the Empire's expansion efforts. The human won't last 30 seconds against a Kralex hunter, remarked General Vextar, the Emperor's military advisor. His own species, the Thylorians, were natural warriors, but even they showed healthy respect for Kralex combat capabilities. Perhaps we should have chosen something less definitive for the opening bout. Zarathel said nothing, but her gaze remained fixed on the human below. There was something different about this one. While other gladiators postured and played to the crowd, Marcus Chun simply waited, conserving energy and studying his opponent with the cold calculation of a trained soldier. The Kralek's warrior struck without warning, covering the distance between them in a blur of chitinous fury. Its claws, capable of shearing through battle tank armor, swept toward Marcus's head in a killing arc. The crowd held its breath, already tasting the spectacle of human blood. Marcus wasn't there. He had dropped and rolled left, the Kralek's claws whistling through empty air where his neck had been a microsecond before. As he came up from the roll, his plasma sword carved a burning line across the warrior's rear legs. The Kralek shrieked, a sound like metal tearing, and whirled to face this impossible opponent. The crowd's bloodthirsty roar faltered into confused murmur. Humans weren't supposed to be fast enough to avoid Kralek's attacks. Their reflexes were notoriously slow, their strength negligible compared to most galactic species. Yet somehow this one had not only evaded certain death, but had drawn first blood. Marcus circle-stepped around his wounded opponent, noting the way it favored its injured legs. The plasma wound was cauterized, but painful, disrupting the warrior's natural balance. In the Earth Defense Force, Marcus had studied every known alien combat form, preparing for the day humanity might face hostile contact. That training was paying dividends now. The Kraleks lunged again, this time leading with its mandibles in a crushing bite that could snap a human spine like dry wood. Marcus feinted left, then dove right, rolling under the creature's body and slashing upward with his sword. The plasma blade cut deep into the warrior's underbelly, where the chitinous armor was thinnest. The alien's death scream echoed through the suddenly silent arena. 80,000 spectators stared in stunned disbelief as the inferior human stood over his fallen opponent, plasma sword still humming with deadly energy. In the royal box, Emperor Thaindok leaned forward, his massive frame casting shadows across the viewing platform. "How is this possible?" he rumbled, his voice like distant thunder. "Kralek's hunters are apex predators. They have never been defeated in single combat by a human." Zarathel found herself studying the gladiator with new interest. Marcus Chun stood motionless in the arena's center, not celebrating his victory or playing to the crowd, but scanning the exits and energy barriers like a soldier assessing tactical options. There was an intelligence in his movements, a controlled precision that spoke of extensive training and combat experience. "Check the human's background." She ordered her personal aide, a nervous Maltharian named Piptel. "I want to know everything about him." As medical drones removed the Kralek's corpse, the arena's announcement system crackled to life. The voice belonged to announcer Grelvox, whose enthusiasm could make even mass executions sound entertaining. Incredible. Absolutely incredible. In a stunning upset, the human gladiator has defeated a Kralek's hunter in single combat. This is the first such victory in recorded galactic history. Betting systems are crashing throughout the sector as oddsmakers scramble to recalculate. Marcus wiped alien blood from his blade, his expression unchanged. He had fought to survive, nothing more. The crowd's reaction meant less to him than the tactical information he was gathering about the arena's security systems. If he was going to be forced to fight, he would use every advantage available to stay alive long enough to find a way out. The Emperor's voice boomed across the arena as he activated the royal communication system. "Human, you have provided exceptional entertainment. What is your name?" Marcus looked up at the royal box, meeting the Emperor's gaze without flinching. "Marcus Chun, formerly of the Earth Defense Force. A military man? That explains much. Tell me, Chun of Earth, do you believe you could defeat another opponent? The question was loaded with implications. Refusing would likely mean death, but accepting meant facing progressively more dangerous foes until something finally killed him. Marcus chose the only path that kept him breathing. Yes, Your Imperial Majesty. The crowd erupted in fresh excitement. A human gladiator willing to face multiple opponents was unprecedented. The betting systems, having just recovered from the Krallick's upset, crashed again as gamblers placed impossible wagers on the humans' continued survival. Zarathel watched the interaction with growing fascination. The human showed no fear of her father, no subservience expected from conquered peoples. He answered with the crisp professionalism of a career soldier, as if he were reporting to his commanding officer rather than addressing the most powerful being in known space. Piptel returned with the requested information, his small hands trembling as he whispered details into the princess's ear. Commander Marcus Chun, age 34 Terran years. Decorated veteran of the Earth Defense Force with expertise in xenobiology and combat tactics. Accused of espionage against the Galactic Council and sentenced to gladiatorial combat. No known family ties or political connections. Espionage charges? Zarathel raised one crystalline eyebrow. Against the Council? Interesting. The second gate was already opening, revealing Marcus's next opponent. A Vashti berserker emerged, its crystalline armor refracting the arena lights into rainbow patterns. Vashti were known for their fury in combat, entering trance states where pain became irrelevant and death held no fear. They were also notoriously difficult to kill, their mineral-based physiology requiring specific targeting to achieve permanent damage. Marcus studied the new threat, noting the way light bent around the creature's armor and the positioning of what appeared to be sensory organs. His plasma sword would need to strike precisely to penetrate the crystalline defense, and the Vashti's berserker rage would make accurate targeting extremely difficult. The Vashti warrior began its pre-combat ritual, a series of harmonic tones that resonated through its crystalline body. The sound built to a crescendo that shattered several viewing screens in the lower sections of the arena. When the ritual concluded, the berserker's eyes had changed from pale blue to burning crimson. The rage trance was complete. It charged with inhuman speed, crystalline fists swinging in devastating arcs that could pulverize stone. Marcus dodged the first blow by inches, feeling the displaced air ruffle his hair. The second strike grazed his shoulder, sending him stumbling but not seriously injured. The crowd was on its feet now, sensing the potential for another impossible victory. Even in the royal box, previously bored nobles leaned forward to watch the spectacle unfold. Only Zarathel remained outwardly calm, though her internal analysis was working at maximum capacity. Marcus adapted his strategy, using the arena's obstacles and the Vashti's berserker fury against his opponent. When the warrior charged, Marcus would dodge at the last possible second, allowing the creature to crash into energy barriers or arena walls. Each impact left crystalline fragments scattered across the floor, fragments that Marcus began incorporating into his attacks. He grabbed a shard of crystal armor and hurled it at the Vashti's head with military precision. The improvised projectile struck the warrior's optical cluster, sending cracks spiderwebbing across its visual organs. Blinded and maddened, the berserker began attacking randomly, its fury now working against it. Marcus closed in carefully, studying the pattern of the Vashti's defensive positions. When he found his opening, the plasma sword struck like lightning, cutting through a hairline fracture in the creature's armor to reach the neural cluster beneath. The berserker collapsed mid-charge, its body reverting to pale transparency as life fled. The arena fell silent once more. 2 victories. 2 impossible victories by a species everyone knew was weak, slow, and poorly adapted for combat. In the royal box, Emperor Thaindok was no longer lounging in his throne, but standing at the barrier, his massive hands gripping the rail with enough force to leave dents in the metal. "This changes things," he rumbled to General Vextar. "If humans possess this level of combat capability, our intelligence estimates about Earth's military potential may be severely flawed." Zarathel said nothing, but her mind was racing through possibilities and implications. A human warrior capable of defeating both Kralek's hunters and Vashti berserkers represented a significant unknown variable in galactic power calculations. More importantly, it suggested that humanity might be far more dangerous than anyone realized. As medical drones cleaned the arena floor once again, Marcus stood waiting for whatever came next. His breathing was controlled, his stance ready, but exhaustion was beginning to show around the edges. 2 high-intensity combats had pushed his human physiology to its limits, and any further opponents would face a progressively weaker adversary. The Emperor's voice echoed through the arena once more. "Human Shun, you have surprised us greatly. Do you wish to face a 3rd opponent, or would you prefer to rest and fight again another day?" It was a significant offer. Most gladiators were expected to fight until they died or could no longer stand. Being offered a choice was almost unprecedented, particularly for a human slave. Marcus understood the implications. He was becoming valuable as entertainment, which might translate into better treatment and survival opportunities. "I will fight again, Your Imperial Majesty, but I request 1 day of rest and medical attention for my injuries." The crowd murmured at this reasonable request. Even alien spectators could see that the human was pushing beyond normal endurance limits. The Emperor considered for a long moment before responding. "Granted, the human gladiator will return in 3 days' time to face our champion gladiator. If he survives that encounter, he will earn his freedom and citizenship in the Vorthan Empire." The arena exploded in chaos. Freedom for a gladiator was extraordinary enough, but citizenship in the Empire was almost unheard of for non-Vorthans. The Emperor had just offered a human the opportunity to join one of the galaxy's most exclusive societies. As security drones escorted Marcus from the arena floor, he caught a brief glimpse of the royal box. Princess Zarathel was staring directly at him, her crystalline features unreadable, but her attention undivided. For just a moment, their eyes met across the vast distance separating slave from royalty. Something passed between them in that instant. Not love, not yet, but recognition. 2 intelligent beings acknowledging each other across species lines and social barriers. The moment lasted only a heartbeat before Marcus was led away to the gladiator cells, but it would prove to be the beginning of something that would reshape the galaxy. In her private chambers that night, Zarathel stood before the vast window that showed the star-filled void beyond Vex Prime. Her reflection stared back from the transparent metal, crystalline skin catching the light of distant suns. She was thinking about the human gladiator and the way he had fought, not with the desperate fury of a doomed prisoner, but with the calculated precision of a professional soldier. There was something about Marcus Chun that troubled her in ways she couldn't yet define. Perhaps it was the intelligence she had seen in his eyes, or the complete lack of subservience he had shown toward her father. Most species, even powerful ones, showed some deference to Vorthan royalty. The human had simply answered questions and made reasonable requests, as if speaking to equals. The thought was both disturbing and strangely appealing. The Gladiator Medical Bay on Vex Prime was a marvel of xenobiology, equipped to treat injuries across hundreds of different species. Marcus Chin lay on a biocompatible healing platform, watching cellular regeneration fields slowly repair the damage from his arena battles. The technology was impressive, far beyond anything available on Earth, yet he remained wary of the alien physicians attending him. Dr. Veltar, a spindly Higothian with multiple manipulator arms, chittered in what might have been amusement as he reviewed Marcus's biological scans. "Fascinating musculature for such a primitive species," he commented to his assistant, apparently forgetting that humans possessed universal translators. "The skeletal structure is remarkably dense, and these cardiovascular adaptations suggest evolution in a high-gravity environment." Marcus said nothing, though he noted how the medical staff discussed him like a laboratory specimen rather than a sentient being. It was a common attitude throughout the galaxy. Humans were curiosities, barely deserving of basic courtesy. The irony wasn't lost on him that his species was considered primitive by beings who needed mechanical aids to perform functions human bodies accomplished naturally. 2 days had passed since his victories over the Kralix Hunter and Vashti Berserker. The galaxy-wide broadcasts had created something approaching celebrity status for the miracle human gladiator, though Marcus suspected the attention would fade as quickly as it had appeared. Alien attention spans seemed remarkably short when it came to anything involving humanity. What he hadn't expected was the personal visit from Princess Zarathel. She arrived at the medical bay without fanfare, dressed in the flowing silver robes of Vorthan nobility and accompanied by only 2 guards. The medical staff immediately prostrated themselves in the presence of royalty, but Marcus merely sat up on his treatment platform, meeting her gaze with the same steady composure he had shown in the arena. "Your Imperial Highness," he said simply, inclining his head in acknowledgement, but not groveling as the doctors were doing. Zarathel studied him with those star-bright eyes, noting his calm demeanor and respectful but not subservient greeting. Most gladiators, even successful ones, would have been stammering with terror at an unexpected royal visit. The human simply waited, as if meeting alien royalty was a routine occurrence. "Dr. Veltar," she said without taking her eyes off Marcus, "please continue your work elsewhere. I wish to speak with the gladiator privately." The medical staff fled with obvious relief, leaving Marcus alone with the princess and her guards. The silence stretched for several moments as she continued her examination, walking slowly around the treatment platform as if studying a particularly interesting artifact. "You fought well," she finally said, her voice carrying the musical tones common to her species. "My father's military advisors are quite concerned about the implications of your victories." "I survived," Marcus replied. "Nothing more." "Survived?" Zarathel stopped directly in front of him, tilting her head in a gesture that seemed curious rather than threatening. "You defeated 2 species considered among the galaxy's most dangerous warriors. That suggests considerable training and capability." Marcus shrugged, a gesture that apparently translated across species lines. "Earth Defense Force trains for all possibilities. Your galaxy has many dangerous species. We needed to be prepared." The admission was significant. Most humans who reached the gladiator pits were criminals, refugees, or simple unlucky civilians caught in the wrong place. A trained military officer represented something different entirely, evidence of Earth's actual defensive capabilities rather than random chance. "Tell me about Earth's military," Zarathel said, settling gracefully onto a chair that adjusted automatically to her crystalline physiology. My intelligence reports suggest your species possesses only primitive weapons and minimal space capability. Marcus considered his response carefully. Information was power, and he had no intention of revealing anything that might harm Earth's security. At the same time, outright lies would be easily detected and might end this conversation in ways he wouldn't survive. We're a young species by galactic standards, he said eventually. Our technology is limited compared to the empires, but we've had to become resourceful. Humans excel at adaptation and improvisation. Improvisation. She spoke the word like she was testing its flavor. Yes, I observed that in your fighting style. You used the arena itself as a weapon, turned your opponent's strengths against them. Most warriors rely on superior equipment or natural advantages. Most warriors don't face opponents twice their size with natural armor and enhanced strength, Marcus pointed out. Humans learned long ago that intelligence beats raw power if you're clever about application. Zarathel leaned forward slightly, and Marcus caught a faint scent like ozone and crystalline formations. Her species apparently communicated through pheromones as well as verbal language, though his human nose couldn't interpret the chemical messages. Your translator device, she said suddenly. It's not standard issue for gladiator equipment. How did you acquire it? Marcus touched the small device behind his ear, surprised she had noticed it among his other equipment. Most aliens assumed humans were naturally multilingual, not understanding the technological assistance required for interspecies communication. Diplomatic mission equipment, he admitted, from when I was still a commander rather than a prisoner. You were a diplomat? Her crystalline features shifted through several color phases, indicating strong emotional response. The file said you were accused of espionage. The files were created by whoever wanted me removed from the diplomatic mission, Marcus said bluntly. I was investigating some discrepancies in the trade agreements between Earth and the Galactic Council when I was suddenly arrested and shipped here. The revelation hung in the air between them. Zarathel was intelligent enough to read the implications immediately. If Marcus had been investigating trade agreements and was subsequently framed for espionage, it suggested someone with considerable political power had wanted him silenced. Which agreements? She asked, her voice carefully neutral. Marcus hesitated. This was dangerous territory, potentially involving the princess's own father and the Empire's trade policies. But something in her manner suggested genuine curiosity rather than interrogation. Rare Earth mineral extraction rights, he said finally. Earth was being offered prices far below galactic market rates, with extraction quotas that would strip our planet bare within 50 years. When I requested time to review the terms with Earth's government, the espionage charges appeared. Zarathel was quiet for a long moment, processing this information. The Empire's expansion often involved exactly such predatory trade agreements, offered to species too technologically backward to understand they were being robbed. If the human had uncovered this pattern, his removal would indeed have been necessary to protect ongoing operations. You realize, she said slowly, that sharing this information with me could be considered further espionage against the Council? Marcus met her gaze steadily. Your Imperial Highness, I'm already condemned to death in an arena. What further punishment could they impose? The logic was unassailable, and she found herself appreciating his directness. Most beings who spoke with Vorthan royalty engaged in elaborate verbal dances, careful to say nothing that might give offense. Marcus Chun simply stated facts and let her draw her own conclusions. Tomorrow you face champion Krogthul, she said, changing the subject. He has never been defeated in single combat. His species, the Gorvani, are genetically engineered for warfare. Claws that can cut through battle armor, reflexes enhanced beyond normal biological limits, and enough raw strength to crush vehicles. Thank you for the briefing, Marcus said without apparent concern. Any particular weaknesses I should know about? The question startled her. Most gladiators facing Krogthul spent their final hours in terror, begging for mercy or drowning themselves in whatever intoxicants were available. Marcus was asking for tactical intelligence, as if preparing for a routine military engagement. "You're not afraid?" she asked. "Fear is counterproductive," he replied. "I'll either find a way to win or I'll die efficiently. Terror won't improve either outcome." Zarathel stood abruptly, pacing to the window that overlooked the arena complex. Below them, maintenance crews were preparing the combat surface for tomorrow's spectacle, installing specialized equipment to accommodate Krogthul's enhanced physiology. "What if I offered you an alternative?" she said without turning around. Marcus raised an eyebrow, though she couldn't see the expression. "What kind of alternative?" "Service in the Imperial military. A full commission appropriate to your training and experience. You would live and serve the Empire's interests rather than dying for entertainment." It was an extraordinary offer. Alien species were rarely accepted in a Vorthan military service, and certainly never at officer rank. The proposal represented not just survival, but genuine opportunity for advancement and influence. In exchange for what? Marcus asked because there was always a price. Information about Earth's real military capabilities, technology assessments, strategic planning, defensive installations. Everything you know about your homeworld's actual strength, rather than the primitive facade the Council believes. Marcus was quiet for a long time, considering implications and consequences. The offer was tempting beyond description. Escape from the arena, a chance to live, even the possibility of eventual return to Earth with the Empire's protection. All he had to do was betray every secret his species possessed. "I need time to consider this," he said finally. Zarathel turned back to face him, her expression unreadable. "You have until after tomorrow's fight. If you survive, the offer stands. If not," she gestured toward the arena below. "Understood," Marcus said. "May I ask why you're making this offer? Surely the Empire has other intelligence sources regarding Earth." She hesitated, and for the first time since entering the medical bay, her composure seemed less than perfect. "I find myself curious about your species. The intelligence reports clearly underestimate human capability, and I dislike operating with flawed information." It was a reasonable explanation, though Marcus sensed there was more to her motivation. Something in her manner suggested personal interest beyond military intelligence gathering. The thought was both intriguing and potentially dangerous. Alien royalty developing personal interest in human prisoners rarely ended well for the humans involved. "I appreciate your candor, Your Imperial Highness," he said carefully. Zarathel moved toward the exit, then paused at the doorway. "Marcus Chun," she said, using his name for the first time. "Win tomorrow's fight. I would prefer to continue our conversation when you're not facing imminent death." After she left, Marcus lay back on the treatment platform and stared at the ceiling. The healing fields continued their work, repairing muscle damage and accelerating recovery, but his mind was focused on the impossible choice now facing him: betray Earth to save himself, or maintain his integrity and almost certainly die in the arena. The decision would have been easier if he hadn't seen something unexpected in Princess Zarathel's crystalline eyes. She was supposed to be another alien oppressor, viewing humans as useful tools or amusing pets. Instead, he had detected genuine curiosity and what might have been concern. The combination was unsettling in ways he couldn't clearly define. Late that night, as the medical bay dimmed to accommodate various species' sleep cycles, Marcus found himself thinking about the conversation and its implications. The princess had offered him life and opportunity, but at the cost of everything he had sworn to protect. Yet her information about Krogthul suggested she genuinely wanted him to survive tomorrow's encounter. The contradiction was puzzling. If she simply wanted intelligence about Earth's military capabilities, his death in the arena would end any possibility of cooperation. If she was developing personal interest in his welfare, that presented entirely different complications for both of them. Marcus closed his eyes and began running through combat scenarios, preparing for his encounter with the Gorvani champion. Whatever Zarathel's motivations might be, survival had to come first. He could worry about her offer after he had lived long enough to consider it properly. In her private chambers, Princess Zarathel stood before her tactical display, reviewing everything her intelligence network had gathered about human military capabilities. The information was sparse and contradictory, suggesting either remarkable security precautions or significant underestimation of Earth's actual strength. Marcus Chun represented a unique opportunity to gather reliable intelligence about humanity's real potential. His military background and diplomatic experience would provide insights impossible to obtain through conventional espionage. Yet she found herself hoping he would refuse her offer for reasons she couldn't entirely explain. There was something about the human that challenged her preconceptions about inferior species. His calm competence, his refusal to show proper deference to her rank, even his matter-of-fact approach to facing death. None of it matched the standard psychological profiles of primitive beings overwhelmed by superior galactic civilization. Perhaps that was what fascinated her. In a galaxy where most species either groveled before Vorthan power or raged helplessly against it, Marcus Chun simply acknowledged the situation and adapted accordingly. He treated her as an equal worthy of respect rather than a superior demanding worship or an enemy requiring destruction. The attitude was refreshing and disturbing in equal measure. If one human could maintain such composure and capability under extreme stress, what did that suggest about humanity as a whole? Were the intelligence reports wrong? Or was Marcus Chun an exceptional individual among an otherwise primitive species? She would have her answer soon enough. Tomorrow's fight would determine whether he lived to provide the information she needed or died proving that human capability had limits after all. Either way, she found herself more invested in the outcome than seemed entirely appropriate for someone of her station. The realization troubled her as she prepared for sleep. Alien gladiators lived and died for her entertainment regularly, and she had never felt personal concern for their welfare. Marcus Chun was just another non-Vorthan facing death in the arena, regardless of his species or background. Yet as she closed her eyes, Princess Zarathel found herself hoping the human would prove as resourceful tomorrow as he had been in their previous encounters. The galaxy would be a more interesting place with Marcus Chun alive in it. The roar of the crowd was deafening as Marcus entered the arena for what everyone expected to be his final fight. 100,000 beings from across the galaxy had gathered to witness the spectacle, with billions more watching through quantum-link broadcasts. The human gladiator who had shocked the galaxy with impossible victories was about to face reality in the form of Champion Krogthul. Marcus stepped onto the arena floor, noting immediately that the standard configuration had been altered. Energy barriers created a smaller combat space, perhaps 60 meters in diameter, eliminating the room for maneuver that had been crucial to his previous victories. Weapon racks lined the walls, offering various implements of destruction, but he doubted any of them would prove effective against what he was about to face. The crowd's noise reached fever pitch as the champion's gate opened. What emerged barely qualified as a single organism. Krogthul was a nightmare fusion of genetic engineering and surgical enhancement, standing nearly 10 feet tall and massing perhaps half a ton of muscle, bone, and bioweaponry. His Gorvani heritage provided the base structure, but Imperial science had added improvements that transformed him into something beyond natural evolution. Retractable claws jutted from his fingertips, each blade composed of molecularly sharpened adamantine that could cut through most known materials. His gray-green skin showed the telltale scarring of subdermal armor implants, and his eyes glowed with the characteristic red of combat stimulant enhancement. When he moved, it was with the fluid precision of a perfect predator. In the royal box, Emperor Thaindok leaned forward with obvious anticipation. This fight would restore proper order to the galaxy, demonstrating that human success had been mere luck rather than genuine capability. Beside him, Princess Zarathel maintained her composed expression, though her crystalline features showed subtle color shifts that indicated elevated stress levels. "The human has impressed us greatly," the Emperor announced, his voice carrying across the arena. "But today he faces our finest warrior. If Marcus Chun can defeat Champion Krogthul in single combat, he will earn not only his freedom, but also a place of honor in our empire. If he fails..." The Emperor's gesture toward the weapon racks completed the thought. Marcus studied his opponent, noting movement patterns and biological capabilities. Krogthul was faster than anything human-sized had a right to be, stronger than most industrial equipment, and protected by both natural armor and technological enhancements. Direct confrontation would be suicide, but the modified arena offered limited alternatives. The champion spoke for the first time, his voice a rumbling bass that vibrated through the floor plating. "I have studied your previous fights, human. You rely on speed and cunning to defeat superior opponents. Neither will avail you here." It was probably true. The Kralek's hunter had been fast, but predictable, the Vashti berserker strong, but mindless with rage. Krogthul combined speed, strength, intelligence, and technological enhancement into a package designed specifically for killing. Marcus acknowledged this reality and began adapting accordingly. "Begin." The Emperor's command echoed through the arena. Krogthul moved with blinding speed, covering half the distance between them in a single bound. His claws extended fully, seeking to end the fight with one overwhelming assault. Marcus threw himself sideways, rolling desperately as adamantine blades carved gouges in the arena floor where he had been standing. The crowd roared approval as the chase began. Krogthul pressed his advantage, using superior speed, and reached to drive Marcus around the confined space. The human managed to stay ahead of the killing blows, but barely, and each near miss brought him closer to the arena walls where he would have no room left to maneuver. Marcus reached the weapon racks and grabbed the first implement his hand encountered, a Thylorian war hammer designed for crushing heavily armored opponents. He swung it with desperate strength as Krogthul closed in, but the champion caught the weapon's handle effortlessly and twisted it from Marcus's grip. The hammer spun away across the arena floor, leaving the human weaponless once again. "Disappointing," Krogthul rumbled, advancing for the killing stroke. "I had hoped you would provide better sport." Marcus backed against the arena wall, apparently trapped, as the champion raised his claws for a final attack. In the royal box, Zarathel found herself tensing involuntarily, her hands gripping the rail as she watched the humans' apparent defeat unfold. Then Marcus moved, not away from the wall, but along it, his hand finding one of the energy conduits that powered the arena's barrier systems. Human fingers, more delicate and precise than most alien appendages, worked frantically at the access panel as Krogthel's claws swept toward his head. The arena lighting failed. Emergency illumination activated a second later, bathing everything in hellish red. But those few moments of complete darkness had been enough. Marcus was no longer against the wall, but crouched near the arena's center, and Krogthel was spinning in confusion, his enhanced vision temporarily overloaded by the sudden shift in lighting conditions. The crowd's roar changed tone from bloodlust to confusion. This was unprecedented. No gladiator had ever sabotaged the arena's own systems as a combat tactic. In the royal box, technical staff scrambled to assess the damage, while Emperor Thaindok watched with growing interest rather than anger. Marcus used the champion's momentary disorientation to reach the discarded warhammer, hefting the massive weapon despite its weight. Krogthel's vision cleared quickly, but those crucial seconds had shifted the tactical balance. Clever, the champion admitted, but futile. You merely delay the inevitable. Perhaps, but Marcus had learned something important during those moments of darkness. Krogthel's enhanced vision was powerful, but had limitations. Sudden changes in lighting conditions caused temporary blindness as his optical systems adapted. It was a weakness that could be exploited. The human began moving differently now, staying close to the arena walls where backup power conduits ran beneath protective casings. Each time Krogthel closed in, Marcus would trigger another minor system failure. Not enough to shut down the arena entirely, but sufficient to create flickering shadows and sudden brightness shifts that interfered with his opponent's enhanced vision. The champion adapted quickly, relying more on hearing and sentence sight, but the constant adjustments slowed his attacks and reduced their precision. Marcus began landing glancing blows with a warhammer, not enough to cause serious damage, but sufficient to bruise even Krogthel's enhanced physiology. "You fight like a coward," Krogthel snarled, frustration creeping into his voice. "Stand still and face me." "I fight to win," Marcus replied, dodging another claw swipe and triggering another lighting fluctuation. "Honor doesn't resurrect the dead." The comment drew unexpected laughter from portions of the crowd. Many alien species appreciated practical tactics over heroic gestures, and the human's resourcefulness was becoming entertainment in its own right. Krogthel changed strategies, moving away from the walls toward the arena center where environmental controls couldn't be easily accessed. Marcus followed, understanding that the champion was forcing him into the direct confrontation he had been avoiding. They circled each other in the open space, Marcus hefting the war hammer while Krogthel's claws gleamed in the emergency lighting. The crowd fell quiet, sensing the climactic moment approaching. When Krogthel attacked, it was with everything he possessed. The champion became a blur of cutting edges and crushing force, his enhanced speed turning him into a living weapon too fast for normal reflexes to track. Marcus barely managed to interpose the hammer between himself and the claws, the weapon's handle scoring deep gouges as adamantine edges sought his flesh. The assault drove Marcus backward, his human strength insufficient to stop the champion's advance. Krogthel's claws found his shoulder, cutting through fabric and flesh to score the bone beneath. Blood flowed freely as Marcus staggered, his left arm suddenly clumsy and weak. The crowd roared, sensing victory. In the royal box, Zarathel leaned forward despite herself, her crystalline features cycling through colors that indicated extreme emotional stress. The human was losing, as everyone had expected, but somehow she found the prospect deeply disturbing. Marcus fell to one knee, the warhammer slipping from nerveless fingers as shock and blood loss took their toll. Krogthol loomed over him, claws raised for the coup de grace, victory assured at last. "You fought well for an inferior species," the champion said, almost respectfully. "Die with dignity." Marcus looked up at his executioner, then, beyond him, to something Krogthol couldn't see. "Inferior species," he repeated thoughtfully. "You know what's inferior? Depending on enhancement instead of training." His right hand moved, not toward a weapon, but to the small device behind his ear. The universal translator that had allowed communication throughout the arena fights also contained other components, including an emergency beacon that every Earth diplomatic mission carried. The beacon activated with a pulse of electromagnetic energy that disrupted every enhanced system within 50 meters. Krogthol's enhanced vision flickered offline. His subcutaneous armor controls failed. Even his claws briefly retracted as their extension mechanisms reset. For exactly 3 seconds, the genetically enhanced champion was reduced to baseline Gorvani capabilities. Marcus moved with desperate speed, his right hand finding the fallen warhammer and swinging it upward with everything he had left. The weapon caught Krogthol in the center of his chest, impacting with bone-crushing force against ribs unprotected by failed armor systems. The champion staggered backward, his enhancements flickering back online, but damage already done. Broken ribs grated against each other as he fought for breath. His invulnerable facade finally cracked. The arena fell completely silent. 100,000 beings stared in disbelief as the impossible happened once again. Marcus Chun, bleeding and exhausted, climbed slowly to his feet, while champion Krogthol wavered like a damaged machine. "Ow!" Krogthol gasped, genuine confusion replacing his earlier confidence. Marcus retrieved the war hammer, though lifting it required both hands now. Humans don't enhance individuals. We enhance tactics. We enhance strategy. We enhance the ability to find weaknesses in systems that think they're perfect. The next blow caught Krogthol in the head, dropping the champion to the arena floor with the finality of an avalanche. The greatest warrior in Vorthan's service lay unconscious, defeated by a species the galaxy considered primitive and weak. The silence stretched for nearly a minute before Emperor Thaindok's voice boomed across the arena. "Incredible. Absolutely incredible. Marcus Chun of Earth, you have achieved the impossible. You are free, and you are welcome in our empire with all honors due a champion." The crowd erupted in celebration, though whether they were cheering the human's victory or simply the spectacular entertainment was unclear. Medical drones swarmed onto the arena floor to treat both combatants, their efficiency suggesting this level of mutual destruction was not uncommon. Marcus accepted medical attention while trying to process what had just happened. He was free, more than free. He was apparently being offered citizenship and status in one of the galaxy's most powerful civilizations. The prospect was overwhelming after months of expecting to die as a gladiator. In a royal box, Princess Zarathel watched the celebration with mixed emotions. The human had survived, which pleased her more than she wanted to admit, but his victory raised new complications. He had demonstrated capabilities that fundamentally challenged everything the galaxy believed about humanity's limitations. Emperor Thaindok turned to his daughter with obvious satisfaction. "The human will make a valuable addition to our forces." His tactical innovations alone justify the investment in his freedom. Zarathel nodded agreement, though her thoughts were elsewhere. Marcus Chun had just proven that humans could defeat the galaxy's finest warriors through intelligence and adaptation rather than superior force. The implications for humanity's future relationship with the Empire and the galaxy were staggering. More personally, she found herself genuinely relieved by his survival. The feeling was unexpected and somewhat disturbing, suggesting emotional investment in the human's welfare that went beyond simple intelligence-gathering interests. As medical teams stabilized both fighters, Marcus caught sight of the royal box and the princess watching him. Even across the arena's distance, he could see the complex play of colors across her crystalline features. She raised one hand in what might have been acknowledgement or approval, a gesture too subtle for the crowd to notice, but clearly directed at him. He inclined his head respectfully in return, though part of his mind was already working through the implications of his new status. Freedom was wonderful, but it came with expectations and obligations. Princess Zarathel would still want information about Earth's capabilities, and now he would be in a position where refusing might seem like ingratitude. The immediate future promised to be as challenging as the arena, though in entirely different ways. Marcus Chun had won his freedom through combat, but keeping it might require even more dangerous battles in the political arena of galactic civilization. As the medical drones carried him from the arena floor, he wondered if he had simply traded one form of captivity for another, more subtle kind. Time would tell whether his victory had truly set him free or merely placed him in a more comfortable cage. The galaxy would never look at humanity the same way again. That much was certain. Whether the change would prove beneficial or catastrophic remained to be seen. The Imperial Palace on Vorthan Prime was a marvel of crystalline architecture, its towers reaching toward the binary stars that gave the planet its perpetual twilight glow. Marcus Chun stood at the window of his assigned quarters, still adjusting to the reality of his transformation from condemned gladiator to honored guest. 2 weeks had passed since his victory over champion Krogthul, and he was beginning to understand that freedom in the Vorthan Empire came with its own complex web of obligations and expectations. His new status as Imperial Champion granted him considerable privileges, luxurious accommodations, access to advanced medical treatment, even a modest staff to attend his needs. But it also placed him squarely in the political spotlight, where every word and action was analyzed for hidden meanings and potential advantage. The door chimed softly, and Marcus turned to see Princess Zarathel entering his chamber. She moved with the fluid grace common to her species, but he had learned to read the subtle color shifts in her crystalline skin that indicated emotional states. Today she showed the deep blue patterns that suggested serious contemplation mixed with something that might have been nervousness. "Your Imperial Highness," Marcus said, offering the respectful nod that had become their informal greeting. Neither of them seemed comfortable with the elaborate genuflection protocols that normally governed interaction with Vorthan royalty. "Marcus," she replied, using his given name as had become her habit. "I trust your accommodations remain satisfactory." It was a polite fiction. They both knew she didn't visit to discuss room service or interior decoration. These meetings had become regular occurrences over the past 2 weeks, ostensibly for intelligence debriefings about Earth's capabilities, but increasingly focused on broader discussions of philosophy, strategy, and the complex political dynamics of galactic civilization. "Very satisfactory. Thank you," Marcus replied, gesturing toward chairs arranged near the window. "Though I suspect you haven't come to discuss my comfort arrangements." Zarathel settled gracefully into a chair that molded itself to accommodate her physiology, one of the many technological marvels that Marcus was still learning to take for granted. Actually, I wanted to discuss your future role in the Empire. My father has several proposals for your service. Marcus took the opposite chair, noting the subtle tension in her posture. What kind of proposals? Military advisor for alien contact protocols. Combat instructor for elite guard units. Strategic consultant for expansion operations. She paused, her skin shifting to darker blue patterns. Intelligence analyst for human civilization assessment. The last option hung in the air between them, loaded with implications they had been dancing around since his arena victory. Marcus understood that his unique position, a human with detailed knowledge of Earth's capabilities serving in the Vorthan military hierarchy, represented an unprecedented intelligence opportunity for the Empire. And your recommendation? He asked carefully. Zarathel was quiet for a moment, staring out the window at the crystalline spires of the capital city. I think, she said slowly, that you should refuse all of them. The statement was so unexpected that Marcus felt his eyebrows rise involuntarily. Refuse them? That seems like an unwise response to imperial generosity. Not refuse permanently, she clarified, finally meeting his gaze. But delay any commitment until you have a better understanding of the Empire's actual intentions regarding Earth. Marcus studied her carefully. The princess had just suggested he avoid cooperation with her own father's government, advice that bordered on treasonous if overheard by the wrong people. Why would you recommend that? Because I've been reviewing the Empire's expansion protocols, she said, her skin now showing the rapid color fluctuations that indicated significant stress. Earth is scheduled for full incorporation within the next 5 years. The trade agreements you investigated were preliminary to resource extraction operations that would strip your planet of everything valuable. The confirmation of his worst suspicions hit Marcus like a physical blow. He had known the trade terms were predatory, but full planetary exploitation was beyond even his pessimistic projections. My cooperation would facilitate this. Your detailed knowledge of Earth's defenses, population centers, and strategic resources would make the incorporation process far more efficient, Zarathel admitted. Casualties would be minimized, but the end result would be the same. Humanity would become another client species serving imperial interests. Marcus stood abruptly and walked to the window, staring out at the alien cityscape while his mind processed this revelation. Freedom, it seemed, had come with chains he was only now beginning to perceive. "Why are you telling me this?" he asked without turning around. The question hung in the air for a long moment before Zarathel responded. "Because I find myself concerned about the ethical implications of the Empire's expansion policies. Your species demonstrates capabilities that suggest full incorporation might face more resistance than our planners anticipate." It was a diplomatic way of saying that humanity might be stronger than the Empire realized, and that attempting to conquer Earth could prove more costly than expected. But Marcus sensed there was more to her motivation than simple strategic analysis. And personally, he prompted. Another long pause. When she spoke again, her voice carried overtones he hadn't heard before. Uncertainty, perhaps even vulnerability. "Personally, I have come to believe that your species deserves better than exploitation." Marcus turned back to face her, noting the way her crystalline features had shifted to pale silver patterns he hadn't seen before. According to his research into Vorthan biology, such coloration typically indicated emotional states that had no direct human equivalent, something between affection and protective instinct. "That's a dangerous opinion for someone in your position," he observed. "Yes," she agreed simply. It is. The admission created a moment of perfect understanding between them. Princess Zarathel was risking her own position within the imperial hierarchy to warn him about threats to his homeworld. The gesture suggested personal feelings that went far beyond political calculation or intelligence gathering. Marcus moved closer to her chair, close enough to catch that faint ozone scent that seemed characteristic of her species. What do you propose instead? Delay any commitment to imperial service. Use your status as champion to travel freely, gather information about the Empire's actual capabilities and intentions. When you have a complete picture of what Earth faces, then decide whether cooperation serves your species' interests. It was sound advice, though following it would require considerable diplomatic skill to avoid offending the Emperor. Marcus had gained some leverage through his arena victories, but open defiance of imperial wishes would quickly exhaust that protection. And in the meantime, he asked. Zarathel rose from her chair, moving to stand beside him at the window. The proximity allowed him to study the intricate patterns of light that played across her crystalline skin, a natural beauty unlike anything in human experience. In the meantime, we continue our discussions. I find your perspective on galactic politics refreshing. Most beings either grovel before imperial power or rage helplessly against it. You simply analyze the situation and adapt accordingly. Survival trait, Marcus said with a slight smile. Humans learned long ago that ideology is a luxury for species that can afford to be inflexible. Perhaps that's why your species troubles me, Zarathel admitted. The Empire has conquered hundreds of worlds, absorbed dozens of civilizations, but we've never encountered anything quite like humanity. Your adaptability makes you unpredictable, and unpredictable variables concern military planners. Marcus nodded understanding. Fear of the unknown. Even superior force becomes ineffective if you can't predict how your enemy will respond to it. Exactly. She turned to face him directly, and Marcus was struck again by the alien beauty of her features. Which brings me to another topic I wanted to discuss, which is the arena broadcasts made you famous throughout the galaxy. Not just as a warrior, but as proof that humans possess capabilities the official assessments didn't anticipate. Earth's status in galactic civilization has been quietly upgraded as a result. That was news to Marcus. He had assumed his victories were seen as individual achievement rather than species-wide capability demonstration. Upgraded how? Trade delegations from other civilizations have requested new contact protocols with Earth. The hegemony wants to renegotiate their mineral rights agreements. Even the Kralex Collective has expressed interest in cultural exchange programs. Marcus felt his heart rate increase as the implications became clear. His arena fights hadn't just won personal freedom. They had inadvertently altered humanity's entire relationship with galactic civilization. The question was whether that change would prove beneficial or catastrophic. My father sees this as validation of his decision to incorporate Earth sooner rather than later, Zarathel continued. He believes that delaying risks losing advantage to competing powers. And you disagree? I think rushing the process risks underestimating human resistance capabilities. Your victories suggest that Earth might prove more difficult to conquer than anyone realizes. They stood in comfortable silence for several minutes, watching the binary suns slowly set beyond the crystalline skyline. Marcus found himself acutely aware of Zarathel's presence beside him. The way her breathing synchronized with his own, the subtle warmth that seemed to radiate from her crystalline skin. The realization disturbed him. Developing personal feelings for alien royalty was the kind of complication that could get him killed in spectacularly unpleasant ways. Yet he couldn't deny the growing connection between them, the intellectual intimacy of their conversations, or the way she seemed to genuinely care about his welfare and that of his species. "There's something else," Zarathel said suddenly, her skin shifting to the rapid color patterns that indicated emotional stress. "What?" "My father is arranging a marriage alliance for me. Political union with Prince Valtar of the Higothian Confederacy. The announcement will be made at the next Imperial Council meeting." Marcus felt an unexpected stab of something that might have been jealousy, followed immediately by recognition of how inappropriate such feelings were. Princess Zarathel was alien royalty involved in matters of galactic politics. Her personal relationships were determined by imperial needs, not individual preference. "Congratulations," he managed, though the word felt hollow. "It's not a matter for celebration," she said quietly. "Prince Valtar is intelligent and politically connected, but the union is purely transactional. We've met 3 times, always in formal settings, always with political advisors present." Marcus understood the subtext. She was describing an arranged marriage devoid of personal connection or emotional compatibility, the kind of political necessity that royalty throughout human history had endured. "I'm sorry," he said, meaning it. "Are you?" she asked, turning to look at him directly. "Or are you simply expressing appropriate sympathy for my situation?" The question was loaded with implications that made Marcus acutely conscious of the dangerous territory they were approaching. He could give the safe, diplomatic answer that preserved their current relationship while avoiding potentially catastrophic complications. Instead, he chose honesty. "Both. I'm sorry you're facing a marriage without personal choice, and I'm sorry because I've come to value our conversations more than I probably should." The admission hung between them like a challenge. Zarathel's crystalline features shifted through several color phases before settling on the pale silver that seemed to indicate deep emotional consideration. "Marcus," she said softly, "what are your people's customs regarding relationships between different species?" "Theoretically, we have no restrictions. Practically, we've had limited opportunity for interspecies contact." He paused, understanding the deeper question she was asking. "What are Vorthan customs?" "Officially, the imperial bloodline must remain pure. Practically," she gestured helplessly, "there are no practical guidelines because such situations don't arise. Vorthans don't typically develop personal feelings for alien species." "Typically," Marcus repeated. "Typically," she confirmed. They were standing closer now, close enough that Marcus could see the intricate faceted structure of her crystalline skin, the way light seemed to move through her features like trapped starlight. The moment balanced on a knife's edge between diplomatic conversation and something far more personal and dangerous. "This is complicated," Marcus said finally. "Extraordinarily complicated," Zarathel agreed. "And potentially catastrophic for both of us. And we're going to pursue it anyway," Marcus said, reading the decision in her alien features. "It would appear so," she said, her skin shifting to warm golden patterns that seemed to indicate happiness mixed with nervous anticipation. Marcus reached out slowly, giving her time to withdraw if she chose, and gently touched her hand. Her crystalline skin was warm, with a texture unlike anything in human experience. Not quite mineral, not quite organic, but something uniquely her own. "Where does this lead?" he asked. "I don't know," Zarathel admitted. "But I find myself unwilling to accept marriage to Valtar without exploring the alternative. The alternative being whatever this is between us." Marcus squeezed her hand gently, marveling at how natural the gesture felt despite their biological differences. "Then we explore carefully. Neither of us can afford to make mistakes with galaxy-level implications." Zarathel smiled, an expression that transformed her alien features into something breathtakingly beautiful. Carefully, she agreed. But we explore. As the binary suns finally set, casting the imperial palace in the ethereal glow that marked Vorthan night, Marcus found himself contemplating a future more complex than anything he had imagined. His personal feelings for Princess Zarathel were developing into something that could reshape galactic politics, endanger both their species, and challenge every assumption about interspecies relationships. The smart thing would be to step back, maintain professional distance, and focus on the larger questions of Earth's survival and humanity's place in galactic civilization. But as he looked into her starlight eyes, Marcus realized that the smart thing and the right thing were rarely identical. Whatever came next, they would face it together. The Imperial Council chamber was a cathedral of power, its crystalline dome soaring high above the assembled representatives of 1,000 worlds. Marcus Chun stood in the designated area for honored guests, watching as the most powerful beings in galactic civilization gathered for what promised to be the most consequential meeting in recent history. 3 months had passed since his conversation with Princess Zarathel about their growing relationship. 3 months of careful exploration and deepening connection that had somehow remained secret despite the intense scrutiny surrounding both their lives. Today, that secrecy would end. Emperor Thaindok occupied the throne of stars at the chamber's center, his massive crystalline form radiating authority that could be felt even at a distance. Around him, in carefully arranged tiers, sat the rulers and representatives of the Empire's member species. Higothians with their insectoid grace, Thylorians displaying predatory confidence, Meltharians nervously consulting data tablets, and dozens of other alien dignitaries. Prince Valtar of the Higothian Confederacy held a place of honor near the throne, his compound eyes glittering with anticipation. The formal announcement of his engagement to Princess Zarathel was scheduled for today's session, a political alliance that would strengthen ties between two of the galaxy's most powerful civilizations. Except Princess Zarathel had other plans. She entered the council chamber with perfect royal composure, her crystalline skin showing the deep purple patterns that traditionally indicated ceremonial formality. Her flowing robes caught the chamber's lighting like captured starlight, and every being present turned to acknowledge her arrival. Only Marcus, who had learned to read her subtle emotional signals, could detect the underlying determination beneath her calm exterior. Noble representatives of the Imperial Council, Emperor Thaindok began, his voice carrying easily through the vast space. We gather today to celebrate multiple victories for our expanding civilization. The incorporation of the Velthani system proceeds ahead of schedule. Trade agreements with the Outer Rim confederations have exceeded all projections. And today we announce a marriage alliance that will secure our borders for generations to come. Polite applause rippled through the assembled dignitaries. Political marriages were common tools of galactic diplomacy, necessary arrangements that cemented alliances and prevented conflicts. Princess Zarathel's marriage to Prince Valtar would unite two of the region's most significant military powers under imperial influence. Princess Zarathel of the royal house will wed Prince Valtar of the Higothian Confederacy, the emperor continued. The ceremony will take place in 6 months, with representatives from all allied civilizations invited to witness this historic union. Prince Valtar rose from his seat, his antennae twitching with what might have been satisfaction. Your Imperial Majesty, I am honored to accept this alliance. The Higothian Confederacy pledges its continued loyalty to the Empire sealed by this bond between our houses. The response was exactly what protocol demanded. Marriage alliances required formal acceptance from both parties, typically a mere formality when the arrangements had been negotiated in advance by political advisors. Princess Zarathel stood gracefully, her movements drawing every gaze in the chamber. When she spoke, her voice carried clearly to the farthest corners of the vast space. Your Imperial Majesty, I must respectfully decline this proposed alliance. The silence that followed was absolute. 1,000 of the galaxy's most powerful beings sat in stunned disbelief as Princess Zarathel committed an act of royal defiance unprecedented in Imperial history. Refusing an arranged marriage was theoretically possible under Vorthan law, but no member of the royal family had ever exercised such a right. Emperor Thaindok's crystalline features shifted through several color phases before settling on the deep red patterns that indicated barely controlled fury. Daughter, perhaps you misspoke. This alliance has been finalized through months of negotiation. I spoke correctly. Father, Zarathel replied with perfect composure. I cannot marry Prince Valtar because my heart belongs to another. If the previous silence had been absolute, this one approached the supernatural. The concept of royal marriage based on emotional attachment, rather than political necessity, was so foreign to galactic civilization that most species lacked words to describe it. Marcus felt his heart stop as he realized what was happening. They had discussed the possibility of Zarathel refusing the arranged marriage, but she had never suggested making their relationship public. The political implications were staggering, not just for them personally, but for the entire structure of galactic diplomacy. Prince Valtar's compound eyes focused on Princess Zarathel with predatory intensity. Your Imperial Highness, surely you understand that personal feelings cannot supersede political necessity. Our alliance serves the greater good of both our civilizations. I understand the political benefits, Zarathel replied calmly. I simply choose to prioritize different values. Emperor Thaindok rose from the throne of stars, his massive presence dominating the chamber. Name this being who has captured your heart. If the attachment has political merit, perhaps alternative arrangements can be negotiated. This was the moment Marcus had dreaded. Whatever happened next would reshape his life, Zarathel's future, and possibly the entire galaxy's political landscape. He could remain silent, allowing her to face the consequences alone, or step forward and claim his part in this impossible situation. He stepped forward. Your Imperial Majesty, Marcus said, his voice carrying clearly through the silent chamber. Princess Zarathel refers to me. The explosion of shocked voices that followed made the previous silence seem deafening by comparison. Representatives throughout the chamber erupted in disbelief, outrage, and confused chatter as they processed the impossible claim. A human, a former slave, a gladiator, an alien from a species barely acknowledged as civilized, had just declared romantic involvement with the Empire's crown princess. Emperor Thaindok's color patterns shifted to the black and silver that indicated killing rage. Human, you will explain this claim immediately. Marcus walked calmly to the center of the chamber, positioning himself beside Princess Zarathel in a gesture of unity that did not go unnoticed by the assembled dignitaries. Your Imperial Majesty, over the past 3 months, Princess Zarathel and I have developed a personal relationship based on mutual respect, intellectual compatibility, and emotional attachment. We are in love. The final 2 words struck the chamber like a physical blow. Love between alien species was theoretically possible, but practically unheard of. That it had developed between human and Vorthan royalty represented a diplomatic crisis of unprecedented proportions. General Vextar leaped to his feet, his Thylorian features twisted with outrage. This is intolerable. A primitive alien has somehow manipulated our princess into betraying her duty. I have manipulated no one, Marcus replied evenly. Princess Zarathel is capable of making her own decisions. Silence. Emperor Thaindok's voice shook the crystalline dome above them. You forget your place, human. You exist in this empire by my grace, and that grace can be revoked instantly. Marcus felt fear, not for himself, but for what his death would do to Zarathel. Yet he couldn't back down now. Your Imperial Majesty, I understand the unprecedented nature of our situation. I also understand that Princess Zarathel's happiness and the Empire's long-term interests need not be mutually exclusive. You presume to lecture me about Imperial interests? The Emperor's fury was approaching volcanic levels. I presume to suggest that the Empire's greatest strength lies in its adaptability, Marcus replied. Your civilization has conquered the galaxy by incorporating new species, new technologies, new perspectives. Perhaps it's time to incorporate new approaches to diplomacy as well. Princess Zarathel moved closer to Marcus, her crystalline skin showing the golden patterns that indicated fierce determination. Father, Marcus speaks truth. The Empire has always gained strength through diversity. Our relationship represents a new form of alliance, not between civilizations, but between individuals who transcend species barriers. Prince Valtar's antennae twitched rapidly as he processed the implications. Princess, you would throw away a 1,000-year alliance for romantic attachment to an alien. I would choose love over duty, Zarathel replied simply. And in doing so, I would demonstrate that the Empire values individual worth over political convenience. The statement sent fresh waves of shock through the assembled representatives. Individual worth over political convenience was not a concept that translated well into most galactic languages. Emperor Thaindok was quiet for a long moment, his massive intellect working through possibilities and implications. When he spoke again, his voice carried the weight of absolute authority. This situation requires careful consideration. The council will recess while I deliberate with my advisors. As the emperor left the chamber, followed by his inner circle, Marcus found himself surrounded by curious and hostile aliens. Some seemed fascinated by the unprecedented situation, while others clearly viewed his relationship with Princess Zarathel as an affront to natural order. You have doomed both yourself and the princess, Prince Valtar said quietly as he passed. Political necessity will prevail over romantic fantasy. Marcus met his gaze steadily. We'll see. The recess lasted 3 hours, during which Marcus and Zarathel were kept in separate chambers under guard. Marcus spent the time preparing for various scenarios, from exile to execution, while hoping that Zarathel's political value would protect her from the worst consequences. When the council reconvened, Emperor Thaindok appeared to have reached some kind of decision. His crystalline features showed the neutral patterns that indicated careful emotional control. I have considered this unprecedented situation from multiple perspectives, he began. The alliance with the Higothian Confederacy remains politically valuable. Princess Zarathel's marriage to Prince Valtar would strengthen our regional position significantly. Marcus felt his heart sink as he anticipated the inevitable rejection of their relationship. However, the emperor continued, I have also considered the broader implications of forcing this marriage against my daughter's clearly stated preferences. The empire has always prided itself on enlightened governance that respects individual rights while serving collective needs. Prince Valtar leaned forward, his compound eyes glittering with interest. This was not proceeding as expected. Therefore, Emperor Thaindok announced, "I propose a test of worth. If Marcus Chon of Earth can prove his value to the Empire exceeds the political benefits of the Gothian alliance, I will consider sanctioning his relationship with Princess Zarathel." The chamber erupted in fresh discussion as representatives tried to process this unexpected development. The emperor was essentially offering to trade a crucial political alliance for proof that a human could provide equivalent value to the empire. "What kind of test?" Marcus asked, though he suspected he wouldn't like the answer. "The Rim territories have been experiencing raids from an unknown alien force," the emperor explained. "Our military forces have been unable to locate or engage these raiders effectively. You will have 6 months to solve this problem using whatever resources you deem necessary. Success will demonstrate your worth to the Empire. Failure will result in your execution and Princess Zurathel's marriage to Prince Valtar." It was a death sentence disguised as an opportunity. The Rim territories covered hundreds of star systems across thousands of light years. Finding Phantom Raiders in such a vast area would challenge the Empire's entire military apparatus, let alone a single human with limited resources. "I accept," Marcus said without hesitation. Princess Zarathel's crystalline features shifted to patterns he had never seen before, colors that seemed to indicate pride mixed with terror. She understood as well as he did that the Emperor had essentially given them 6 months to say goodbye. "Very well," Emperor Thaindok declared. "Marcus Chan will depart for the Rim territories within a week. Princess Zarathel will remain on Vorthen Prime until the mission is completed." As the council session ended, Marcus and Zarathel found themselves with only moments together before his departure preparations began. She took his hands in hers, her crystalline skin warm against his human flesh. "This is impossible," she whispered. "Even our best military minds can't solve the raider problem." "Then I'll have to be better than our best military minds," Marcus replied. "I've defeated impossible odds before. This is different. This is the entire galaxy watching, waiting for you to fail." Marcus kissed her forehead gently, a gesture that sent ripples of golden light across her crystalline skin. "Then let the galaxy watch. I've already proven that humans don't accept defeat easily. Now I'll prove that love is worth fighting impossible odds for." 6 months later, Marcus stood on the bridge of the captured Raider flagship, its alien technology finally decoded through weeks of careful study. The Raiders hadn't been unknown aliens at all, but rogue Imperial forces using stolen experimental ships to destabilize Rim territories and create the illusion of external threats. Their goal had been to justify increased military spending and expansion of the Empire's control over outlying systems. The evidence was overwhelming and politically explosive. Marcus had not only solved the Raider problem, but uncovered a conspiracy involving several high-ranking Imperial officials. The victory exceeded even the most optimistic projections. The return to Vorthen Prime was triumphant. The Imperial Council, forced to acknowledge Marcus's success, watched as Emperor Thaindok kept his bargain. The human had proven his worth beyond any doubt. Standing once again in the council chamber, Marcus felt the weight of 1,000 alien gazes as Princess Zarathel approached the center of the vast space. This time, there was no hesitation, no political maneuvering, no concerns about precedent or tradition. "Noble representatives of the Imperial Council," she began, her voice carrying clearly through the crystalline dome. "Today we witness the proof that love transcends species barriers, that worth cannot be measured by genetics or political convenience, and that the Empire's greatest strength lies in embracing the impossible. She turned to Marcus, her crystalline features radiant with happiness. "Marcus Chun of Earth, will you accept my proposal of marriage?" The reversal of traditional roles sent one final shock through the assembled dignitaries. A princess of the imperial house was proposing to a human gladiator, breaking every convention of royal protocol. Marcus stepped forward, taking her hands in his as he had months before. "Princess Zarathel of the royal house, I accept with all my heart." The kiss that followed was broadcast live across the galaxy, witnessed by trillions of beings on thousands of worlds. It was the moment that changed everything. The first interspecies royal marriage in galactic history, proof that love could indeed conquer impossible odds. As they separated, Emperor Thaindok rose from the throne of stars, his massive presence dominating the chamber. But this time, his crystalline features showed warm colors that indicated approval and even affection. "Let it be recorded," he announced, "that the Empire embraces this union as symbol of our commitment to valuing individual worth over inherited prejudice. Princess Zarathel and Marcus Chun will marry with full imperial honors, and their children will be recognized as legitimate heirs to the royal house." The declaration sent shockwaves throughout the chamber and across the galaxy. Interspecies heirs to the imperial throne represented a fundamental shift in galactic politics, one that would influence policy and diplomacy for generations to come. Prince Valtar stood slowly, his compound eyes studying the couple with what might have been respect. "Your Imperial Majesty, the Higothian Confederacy pledges its support for this union. The princess has chosen well, and the Empire benefits from her choice." It was a gracious concession that helped cement the political legitimacy of Marcus and Zarathel's relationship. Other representatives followed suit, offering congratulations and support as the reality of the situation settled over the galactic political landscape. In the months that followed, the wedding became the most watched event in galactic history. Representatives from every known species attended the ceremony, which blended human and Vorthan traditions into something entirely new. The exchange of vows in multiple languages, the ceremonial sharing of atmospheric elements from both homeworlds, and the promise to build bridges between species created precedents that would influence interspecies relations for centuries. Marcus Chun, once a disgraced military officer condemned to die in the arena, became Prince Marcus of the royal house, wielding influence across 1,000 star systems. But, more importantly, he became living proof that the galaxy's artificial barriers between species could be overcome by determination, love, and the courage to challenge impossible odds. Princess Zarathel, in choosing love over duty, had accidentally revolutionized galactic civilization. Their marriage became the foundation for new diplomatic protocols that valued individual relationships alongside political necessity. Trade agreements began, including provisions for cultural exchange and interspecies cooperation. Even military alliances started incorporating concepts of mutual respect that had been absent from previous arrangements. The changes rippled outward across the galaxy, touching every species and every world. Humanity, once dismissed as primitive and weak, found itself elevated to equal status with the great galactic civilizations. Earth's admission to the Galactic Council as a full member rather than a client state was one direct result of Marcus and Zarathel's union. But perhaps the most significant change was simpler and more profound. Love stories began appearing in the literature of species that had never before imagined romantic attachment across genetic lines. Young beings from different worlds started meeting and forming relationships despite their biological differences. The galaxy became a more interesting and complicated place as individual choice began competing with political necessity. Years later, when historians tried to identify the moment that galactic civilization truly changed, they invariably pointed to the day Princess Zarathel stood before the Imperial Council and declared her love for a human champion. It was the moment that proved love could indeed conquer impossible odds, reshape political systems, and change the fundamental nature of how different species related to each other. Marcus and Zarathel's children, when they came, inherited the best of both species: human adaptability and Vorthan longevity, Terran creativity, and Imperial strategic thinking. They grew up in a galaxy where interspecies relationships were not just possible, but celebrated, where worth was measured by character rather than genetics, and where love was recognized as one of the most powerful forces in the universe. The gladiator who had fought for survival in the arena had ultimately fought for something far more important: the right to love without barriers, the possibility of unity across seemingly impossible differences, and the hope that even the most entrenched systems could change when confronted with genuine emotion and unwavering determination. The galaxy would never be the same, and that both Marcus and Zarathel agreed was exactly as it should be.